Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. You're very welcome to our preview show, and we're looking ahead at another big weekend of Ulster Championship action. We have Antrim and Armagh coming up on Saturday, while Tyrone take on Cavan on Sunday. I'm delighted to be joined by Cavan Niblock, who used to play for Antrim and has coached in Tyrone as well. So he's a man that can have a foot in both games and give us a perfect overview of what we should expect this weekend. And Kevin, I suppose we'll start with Saturday. Obviously, Antrim against Armagh. A big game. It's going to be in Corrigan Park after all the hustle and bustle. It's in Corrigan Park.
Yeah, I suppose from the players' point of view, certainly in Antrim, they're probably just glad that after all the talk, really, it's time to play the game. There's been a lot of sideshow about it, and I think the right decision was made in the end, as roundabout as it was to get there. So yeah, the Antrim lads will be happy, and it'll give them that advantage that they definitely need at the weekend.
I think as much as it sort of dragged out, and the Park Asler Newry was deemed to be the fit spot for it. It was always going to be in Corrigan Park, wasn't it, Kevin? I think
It's
there was no
it's
doubt about it. Everybody was
it's
expecting it to be in Corrigan eventually.
I was just, I suppose, listening. I wasn't listening the whole time, I suppose, and reading every article, but it did seem to me that eventually it would go there. I suppose a lot of the to and from could have been cut out by the look of it. From just chatting to boys. That generally be the general consensus that it was going to be played in Corrigan anyway. So I think good sense prevailed anyway, and yeah, obviously, like it's not ideal, and we all want Case to be built, but you know it's a home fixture and it's rightfully been awarded the Corrigan.
And you'd mentioned just that it's obviously home advantage for Antrim, and it is an advantage for them. Is it how big an advantage is it? Do you feel, Kevin? Like how much of how much of a gap does it close the game being in Corrigan?
Well, obviously, playing the All Ireland champions, you're going to need every advantage you can get. The lads will be under no false illusions that they're up against it this weekend, and like from playing this long time now in Corrigan, a lot of those players who are playing now have actually probably never played in Casement Park, so it truly is their home venue. And as you say, we'll find out at the weekend how much it close the gap, but it certainly, I think will close the gap and be an advantage, especially with the Armagh support. Armagh support's always been great, but especially after last year, obviously that was the big thing that they could have filled out plenty of stadiums around Ireland with the crowd they'd be bringing, the season ticket issue. But yeah, I suppose a nice tight venue like that will definitely give them some sort of advantage anyway.
And I think while is it 4,500? I think Corrigan holds
I think
like
it's about
the
that,
place
yeah.
is the place going to be rammed. Like, and if the weather stays the way it is, the atmosphere is going to be brilliant at it.
Yeah. I think it was just looking ahead there. It might turn a bit at the weekend, but it's an unbelievable week going into it, and hopefully it stays off because yeah, it's going to be a good occasion, I suppose, with all the talk,
I think
especially.
the way the weather has been, Kevin, it just feels like championship now, doesn't it? We're probably not used to having it so early, but it's just because the sun's shining and the ground's hard, and you feel like it is championship season.
It does. This last week or two, even out there tonight with the kids, it's just a great time of year. And I suppose if it was a bit like last year, maybe peak a bit too early. No doubt we'll have a rainy Easter and a miserable summer, but hopefully it stays for a wee while longer than it did last year.
And the game itself, I suppose, it's the All Ireland champions coming to town. It's Division One against Division Three. I suppose there is a bit of a gap there, Kevin, and it's about closing that for Antrim. I suppose how do you see Antrim going about this game? Like, where Where can they hurt Armagh? Do you see any weaknesses in Armagh that Antrim will hope to exploit?
I suppose from an Armagh point of view, I suppose I watched quite a few of the games this year, and the one thing I say, as opposed to last year, obviously they're missing a few lads. Obviously O'Neill's out, and like Kelly and McKay and a few others. I think McGeeney, what he has done well is blooding a few of those boys who were, even not even on the 28, I suppose, when you look at the All Ireland final team sheet last year. So, like any team going for their second All Ireland, that competition needs to be there, and keeping boys who maybe were getting their game last year on their toes. From Antrim's point of view, um, you know, in terms of the last few results, are probably finished the league, bar the Kildare result, which was good. I suppose that middle patch of the league after a good start has maybe rocked their confidence a bit, and there has been quite a few injuries. But what I'm hearing, from an injury point of view, is they have a few boys back who maybe didn't play much of the league, and I think when Antrim are full out, they have a very good side there. I think what Andy's been doing the last year has been blooding some new lads in and building good strength and depth, and I don't think he's had his full hand like maybe a lot of counties this year. But I think the new rules in terms of playing the three up top, playing your best lads up top, and trying to get them the fast break could cause a bit of damage. It's just about how quickly they can transition on that turnover ball. But Antrim do have a strong squad, and I just hope they are fit. The likes of Adam Locker, who hasn't played a lot of time. I think he's back in the pitch. Ryan Murray, obviously seasoned, county player at this stage and loads of quality, is back in and around it at the minute. So hopefully there's a bit of competition for places, and a couple of lads from my own club, the likes of Niall Burns, quality footballer, and it's just been getting better the last few years. So I'd be very interested to see how he rises to. I don't know if it's his Ulster Championship debut, but he's been going well. So for Antrim to do well, everyone needs to have 8, 9, 10 out of 10. And hopefully some of the Armads have a bit of an off day.
And Rory McCann, I think, is one of them players too, Kevin, that maybe didn't see a lot of game time in the league. Maybe
Yeah,
Kildare was his first game back, was it?
yeah. I think he did play in Kildare. It was funny just the way things finished off. I think everyone knew that Sligo game was sort of it. So that last fixture, not really. Although the result was very good, I didn't even read the match report with it. But Rory's a handful, and that's probably something Antrim will need to do. Test back early. I don't know. Like some McKay, I assume still out. As quality as Barry McCambridge is there, it's probably not the strongest line they would have. So yeah, early ball in, see them out. Obviously, Antrim will need, I would say, a couple of goals at the weekend to stay within touching distance. But yeah, a good quality footballer.
And the 2 pointers, Kevin, I suppose the new rules, we're going to see them over the next flourish. We would hope over the next weeks and months, just with the good weather and that. 2 pointers in terms of Antrim, who's the ones we should be looking out for here? That's their sort of distance.
Like Antrim, there's a fair few lads there. The likes of Niall Burns and Paddy McBride, has kicked quite a few through the league. Big Connor Stewart in midfield definitely can pop up, has a great range. And then the likes of, I suppose I know Mark Jordan's been out for a while, but the likes of Dermot McAleese at wing half back and the half back line coming through the middle, I think Dermot would probably be the pick of them there in the half back line. But yeah, the 2 pointers interesting. I don't think it's hard. Definitely, if it's on, it's worth going for. But it was interesting just hearing at the weekend, Mike McBrearty was talking about Donegal, how the amount of, I don't think they've kicked many 2 pointers all year through league and even at the weekend there. So it was interesting to see his take on it. So I certainly think you can't go out thinking, right, we need 2 pointers. Yes, if the opportunity arises and you can work, obviously teams are coaching it now, but I'd say Armagh, yeah, have a few there that can kick them too.
And I suppose for Armagh, Kevin, going into this campaign, they're going in as All Ireland champions. This is sort of the start of their title defence, although even if they're beaten Saturday, they're still in the All Ireland series, obviously. But in terms of going in with that tag on their back now, The last time they done it in 03, they were knocked out in the first round by surprise. Monaghan beat them in the first round by 4 or 5 points. And I know you've experienced it yourself at club level, winning All Ireland. Coming back in the next year, how tough is it just to refocus again, reset, and go again?
Yeah, it is tough. It's as I say, good teams win it once, great teams win them twice, and like I suppose mentally, from that point of view and the experience and the example you give, you think you're as hungry, you think you are, and I suppose it's only really I suppose later stage of the championship these lads will know they are, but I think it's just interesting to see the All Ireland champions playing different rules. Next week and beyond. I think looking back at last year, like what McGeaney and the coaching staff had them, they had it down to a fine art. Obviously the game was more defensive, but Armagh were just the best at it in terms of structure, breaking quickly. The athleticism, the raw pace, the transition they could play, they could mix it up. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. I think from watching them during the league, they had a decent structure in place there, but they obviously couldn't get the 13, 14 men behind the ball, which they're so used to. And saying that, up top, they can really hurt you. Like Andy Murnan, Grugan obviously pulling the strings, and the usual lads that have been playing so well for them, can do damage when you get them on the break. So it'll be interesting to see what his team is. I suppose linking in from even the likes of McQuillan playing the half back line, Connery who's lightning. These players are all quality. So just with the new rules, I think that's probably one of the most interesting things. I'm not a betting man, but I suppose when I heard the new rules, the first thing I thought of was Kerry. And like for a lot of people, it's probably them and Donegal. I know Donegal tailed away are the teams to beat just in the terms of their style of play. So, Armagh have the quality there if they can sort of replicate that style of football. They'll certainly not be far away, but there's not going to be a lot between it. Even just looking at the leagues this year, there was so little between so many leagues. You look at Division Two, kick of the ball, teams were in Division One and Two, going from relegation to final spots within the course of that last day. So it is interesting. Everyone's getting their head around the rules, and Armagh, they certainly have the ability to do it again. But the other teams obviously will raise their game around the edges there too.
I suppose just in terms of that hunger coming back in for the second year, Kevin, the fact that all of them Armagh boys in that changing room, not one of them has an Ulster medal, with all of All Ireland medals, but there's no Ulsters in that changing room. Does that maybe help in terms of hunger that, that maybe they haven't even mentioned All Ireland yet? They're setting their goals on trying to win Ulster for it's been 17 years from Armagh won Ulster.
Geez, it's hard to believe it's been 17 years, and I suppose in those days they were rich with Ulsters, and maybe not as many All Irelands the way the structure was in those days. Yeah, listen. Any player wants to fill up the trophy cabinet with a range of medals, so that's certainly something McGeaney could be hitting home at this year. I think it is hard because let's be honest, the provisional structures have lost a wee bit of something there, the way the game's gone the last few years. But yeah, that definitely could be a motivating factor within the squad.
I think it's the only provincial worth sort of talking
Yeah,
about at this stage. I
yeah,
know
no, I'd
Connacht
agree with you
maybe
there.
a wee bit competitive, but there's
Yeah.
no Ulster's still the only one really worth talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But I suppose Cork on their day could maybe give Kerry a game down there as well. But yeah, definitely the most competitive has been for a while.
Kevin, before we move on to part two, I'll just get a prediction off you. How do you see this one panning out on Saturday?
I think Armagh will win. Um, I don't think it might be the scoreline that some people might think. I would go Armagh by 5 or 6.
Is that a case of maybe Armagh pulling away in the second half, just, or do you think will Antrim be able to keep it tight for long enough?
Well, I would like to think, I certainly think that'll be, the tactics. Want them go out, keep within touching distance, keep it within those, 4 or 5 points. I suppose it's different. You say 5 or 6. I suppose that's nearly like a 3 or 4 point defeat, with the 2 points, 2 pointers in. But that'll certainly be Antrim's tactic. I hope so. I hope so. It is hard to know. It is hard to know. Like there's no doubt Armagh, if they have the right ability, Antrim aren't on it. have the ability to blow them away. But I'm hoping it's nice and tight. And listen, you never know. You never know with these new rules. You never know. But no, I think it hopefully will be an Armagh win, but just by a minimal margin.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, London Derry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
That's Saturday's action. Sunday then, Cavan is Tyrone against Cavan, and I couldn't believe this. I was talking to my Gaelic Life colleague Niall Gardlin just in preparation for the podcast, and it's been 42 years since Cavan actually beat Tyrone in the championship, which
Right.
is unbelievable considering they've met a brave bit even in recent years.
Yeah.
But 1983 was the last time, so Tyrone do seem to hold that wee bit of a hoodoo over Cavan at this stage.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like Tyrone obviously, getting relegated with 7 points, was pretty unlucky. Like they'll certainly be looking at those couple of games. I think it was Mayo, and obviously the Kerry game where they were sort of looking comfortable enough and let it go. And you could be talking about Tyrone very differently. They could win the league final, and they're fit and they're healthy, and obviously Malik Rourke's a quality manager. So Tyrone will be fancying themselves. Definitely will be targeting an Ulster title with Maliki just in, and he's a specialist at it. But Cavan, even looking at their results, like they obviously they didn't start that well, and they went on a great run. Beat the likes of Roscommon, beat some big teams, and Cork fighting for lives on the last day. I think if they had got a win against them, they might have got into the promotion into the league final. So they'll be gutted about that. So they'll be looking to bounce back. But yeah, you'd have to give the Tyrone the edge. But Cavan's just one of those teams you saw it when they won the final. You sort of don't know what you're getting with them. They have quality, like the likes of McKernan back, likes McFeety back playing well, and the usual names like the Smiths, Rayleighs, Brady's a quality footballer. Like they have a quality side that if you get it right, they can give anyone a match. So it'll be an interesting game.
In terms of that sort of hoodoo, maybe Tyrone hold over them sort of things have to come to an end at some stage, don't they? And that'll be Cavan will be they'll be saying that in their changing room.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to read into that. I suppose the way the draw was, obviously, Cavan when they won Ulster wouldn't have got Tyrone, and they maybe avoided each other a wee bit of late. But like Tyrone, obviously since the early 2000s, have been a wee cut above Cavan. So it is a long time. I definitely didn't think it was that long. But yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. But it's certainly something Cavan will be looking to do.
And you had mentioned about, you listed some of the Calvin players that they're going to sort of be looking to. Grood McKiernan's obviously one of them, and I suppose Michael Murphy coming back maybe stole Grood's limelight a wee bit. Kevin, nobody really spoke about him, but the impact he has had, and I think it was Damien Donahue maybe in our podcast during the league was saying that it was no coincidence that Calvin's turn in fortune happened in round 3 in the league when Grood McKiernan started, and he started
Yeah.
every other game, and they just went in their run of form. So he's the Michael Murphy of Cavan. Basically, he's back in. New rules would probably suit him whether he plays out the field or inside. But he's a massive boost for Raymond Gallagher and Cavan, isn't he?
Yeah, like as you say, they're not too dissimilar in terms of players. Played with him years ago in a Railway Cup squad, and yeah, I was very impressed by him. He's just a lovely languid footballer. He can play out the field, he can play inside, and as you say, he's a serious threat from behind that new 2 point arc. I think he kicked a few there, and that he won maybe in that last game, but he's kicked a number in the last few weeks. But yeah, they need all the boys to be on song, but it's the versatility of them. A bit like Murphy. It's one of those ones where Murphy is playing, and managers in the past were dragging him out during midfield. Why do you not throw him the edge of the square? It's that sort of that battle you have, where depending on the game, you'll probably not keep everyone happy if Cavan are about behind a bit and he's out in the middle. They'll be going, he should have been inside, and vice versa. He's just one of those quality players who's big, physical, and very skillful, and a bad matchup for a lot of players. And I suppose that's probably something to exploit. The likes of Hampsey missing and stuff probably would have been a man to do a job on him if he's inside. So they'll target that, although Take's done well in there. That's probably something Cavan will be targeting, and I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in the edge of the square for a while.
In terms of that matchup, Kevin, is it difficult to sort of try to work that out with somebody being so versatile as Grood McKiernan? Because you'd mentioned Peter Teague will probably pick him up when he comes inside, but do you have to change that then when he goes out? Does a Brian Kennedy or Matty Donnelly or Colin Kilpatrick or somebody like that have to pick him up, or is it hard to sort of police swapping over?
It is like there has to be good communication, in that sort of circumstance. They probably have two lads and say, listen, if he crosses the 45, you have him. If he goes in, you have him. One thing with Teague, obviously, he's played a lot of midfield. He's probably a stand-in fullback. I don't think he's played much for the club or Tyrone in the past. As good a footballer isn't as well as he's done. So it'll be a big test for him. But that's, I suppose, in my experience, something that would happen. You maybe have two on eye, but maybe someone like Teague who is good going out the field might go at him. It's just who would they put in there? McKernan. I don't know too many other options there. So as you say, it probably would be a handover. But that's probably something that Cavan will look into, try and exploit to try and keep them on their toes. You drift in, you drift out, and then on the other end, whoever Cavan have, will be drifting in and out alongside McKernan, switching up with them.
I suppose there's the question mark over Paddy Lynch too, I suppose, because it's now a year from he done his cruciate. It was after the Tyrone game last year,
Yeah.
a couple of days after that he done his cruciate. So it's it's about time maybe he was back in terms of recovery and stuff, and his time frame. But I don't think he played in the league. So is it maybe a bit too soon just to throw him in from the start? Is probably unlikely, but he could see game time maybe this week.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything, but as I say, last year, and I had seen him a couple of years ago in Corrigan in the flesh. He's a quality footballer too, so they could be doing with him, certainly. But they've a lot of boys, like even I think they're playing McFeedy in the half back line. He's back out, seems to be in the half forward line, can play inside. The likes of Madden as well, likes of James Smith. They can throw in there. So they've a lot of good footballers who are quite versatile in their positions, like. But as you say, that's probably something maybe not obvious, but it's definitely something. The fact that the like Hampsey's out, that they could certainly target that high ball in, especially if they can turn it over and get it in quick.
See, like you've mentioned him a couple of times, he's such a massive miss in that full back line. Just experience, power, man marking ability. Like he's the sort of player everybody would want on their team.
Yeah. I don't think I was marked by him, but I certainly from watching him, I wouldn't have fancied getting marked by him. No, he's a tough boy, like, and a quality player, but. Throwing of loads of those types of players, I suppose he's specialist. But yeah, they're going to be strong. I suppose where I would be concerned, especially in recent form, obviously Big Brian in the middle has been outstanding. Obviously, I've known him pretty well this last few years, getting to coach him, and I think he's gone from strength to strength, in terms of the quality he's shown, and it's great to see him. It's great to see him doing the Throne jersey, as I've seen him plenty of times in Derry Loughlin jersey, and he's a leader for them as well, and he's just an honest player, and I think he's adding. The one thing I would see is I think Malachy is letting him off the leash a wee bit more. I think there's a lot more football in Brian than maybe some people think. Maybe in Ulster, even in Tyrone, and hopefully he can go from strength to strength. But certainly that's an area I think Tyrone have the upper hand in.
Brian Kennedy, he's an absolute monster too, Kevin. I think there was a Tyrone put up a picture one day of him going in for the toss, and can't remember who they were playing or who the other captain was, but who the other captain was and the referee, he was standing about 2 foot above them, like he's huge.
No, he's a big lad now. He is, and he's just yeah. It's not only his physical size. Obviously, he's, as I said, he's a leader. He's got a great footballing brain, and yeah, he can pick a pass. He can take a score. It is funny you talk about the size difference. There's a photo up in Derry Clubhouse, and I think it's under 14, and he's not too far off outside. He's absolutely torn over a few of those younger lads who are on the squad. It's something that when I was in the clubhouse last year, he always had a laugh at now. But yeah, he's definitely filled out a wee bit more since those days as well.
I suppose that midfield battle when you have Morgan and his kicking range and you have Kennedy and Kilpatrick in the middle of the field, like it's a trio that it's going to be very hard for not only Calvin but for teams throughout the year to sort of break that trio.
Yeah, yeah, like Morgan, it'll be interesting. Not just that, but I just think it'll be interesting too. Obviously, with the new rules reversing back with the keepers come out, I still think the likes of Morgan, even talking about Armagh, with Rafferty, there's still a bit of an option there for those keepers to come up if communication's good, if they've been working on it, where maybe Morgan's come up the right hand side and the left half back drops back, and then the person who's marking the left half back has to communicate and get over. So someone like Morgan who is, let's be honest, inter-county ability as an outfield player. It'll be interesting to see how frequently I think that tactic's used. I know even in the club game, it seems to a lot of keepers aren't doing it. So I think as well as the kickouts, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. I was watching more Bergen last week in the Division 2 final. I thought it was interesting him picking his choosing his moments to come up the field too. So there's definitely a few teams out there I think who will still play out a bit this summer.
I think it's interesting that Kevin that aspect of it because when the 3v3 up top changed to the 3v4, the four had to stay back. I think we just assumed that goalkeeper that was the end of the goalkeeper. They weren't coming up anymore. But as you say, like Rory Began does it, Ethan Rafferty done it against Derry in the final round of the league. Now Morgan does it. So it's just a case of picking your moments. And I think Morgan said after the Donegal game, like it's maybe when a defender or a midfielder's coming back in and he's tired. Morgan's the fresh legs, he can bounce out, and that creates the sort of overlap with him coming out.
That's it. Ultimately, they can pick and choose when they do it. They're fresh. They can sort of read the play. They can come up from 3 to 6, see what's happening. Is it slow play? Okay, it's slow. I can go. And I suppose at that stage, that's your communication where you're going, right, you stay back. And it might be someone who's just done a few up and downs, but the keeper has the vantage point where you can keep an eye on that. So it'll be interesting. And I think, God, even going years back, like before rules were changed, something PJ O'Hare from our club, ex-Antrim manager, said that that's the way the game was going. The keeper was going to come up, and when you think about it, regardless of rule changes, that's really the way it was going. Anyway, if the keeper was come up, it still had to be someone back in net. So, although the structure's changed and it has to be 3, 4, up and down, yeah, I think that keepers coming out, and that's the way it had been going even before the 3 up. I don't think it's completely gone from the game.
And just before we finish up, Kevin, just want to touch on the Tyrone forward line because they obviously have so many options up there. And like Darren McCurry was unbelievable the last game against Dublin. We all know what Darren Canavan's like. Rory Canavan couldn't seem to get his place even in the last couple of league games. You've Owen McElhone there, you've Matty Donnelly, you've Petey Hart maybe playing centre half forward. They have a range of players, and I've probably missed a few. Mark Bradley that could get on any team in Ireland. So I suppose for Molecule Rock, it's just about finding that blend, finding the three best suited at any given stage, and then working the subs and the fresh legs into the game.
That's it. They have a real wealth of riches there in Tyrone, and you said it there. It's going to be the balance. I think it's going to be looking at your opposition, and trying to exploit maybe their weaknesses. It's nearly like in basketball, go big or go small. You have the likes of Derek Canavan, Mark Bradley, Roy Canavan. You can come in there at a certain stage of the game, play low ball into them, get runners off them, get them take their man on. It is interesting, like Callum McShane doesn't seem to be getting too much of a game, or players like this, such has the strength and depth of that forward unit. So, yeah, it's a good headache to have. It's hard to know. I think like the way Rory Callum was playing through the Iron Club's campaign, a lot of people would have thought that yeah he has to play this year, but yeah, it's one of those ones. It's a good headache to have, and no doubt it's probably going on who's performing in training at this stage, who's really, really sharp. Like Bradley as well, the form he had last year in Tyrone was unbelievable. Obviously, the one person you would say has to play would be Derek Hanneman. He's just that wee bit different. He's class. He sort of, anytime I see him, he looks like he's morphing into his father, which is the biggest compliment you could give to anyone. But as you say, like Matty Donnelly, Petey Hart, that sort of versatility for me, Peter Hart has to play. It's where you play him, and he's just that type of player you can play anywhere from six right up. So it'll be interesting that personnel position wise what the changes are there. But I certainly think, especially with the amount of the blood and the Tyrone have been doing, I would say the likes of Petey Hart and Matty Donnelly will be playing. It's just a matter of where.
And just before we wrap up then, Kevin, same as the Antrim Armagh game, we'll finish with a prediction. Who do you see coming out on top here?
Uh, Tyrone by 4, we'll say.
Who's going to continue?
Yeah.
No
No
great
shocks
stuff.
here. No shocks here.
No, great stuff, Kevin. That's all we have for our preview show. We'll be back, of course, on Monday. We'll have a review show. We'll be looking back at those two games and everything else that's happening over the weekend. There's plenty of ladies, camogies, hurling action as well. So we'll be reflecting on all that on Monday, and we'll be back on next Thursday as well with another preview podcast. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks to Kevin for giving us his thoughts. On best luck, Kevin. I'll hopefully see you in Corrigan Park maybe on Saturday if we can
Yeah.
get tickets.
Yeah. Good man. Thanks, Sean.
Good stuff. Thanks.
All right.